The heavy rain poured down on Chicago's downtown streets that evening, turning the sidewalks into slick mirrors that reflected the red and blue lights of the city. In the quiet corner of a small apartment in the South Side, Emily Harper sat at her old wooden table, her hands moving slowly as she sewed a torn shirt for her mother. The apartment was small and warm, with a leaky roof and the smell of cheap coffee in the air. Emily was 26, with long dark hair tied back in a simple ponytail and hazel eyes that looked tired from the long shifts she worked. She was a nurse at a local hospital, and money was always tight. Her mother had been sick for years, and Emily worked extra hours to pay for the medicine that kept her alive. She had lost her father when she was young, and now she was the only one fighting to keep the family together. No one knew the real reason she kept a small black notebook hidden in her drawer at home. It was a secret she had carried since she was 18, something her father had taught her before he died. It felt ordinary, just like her job, but it was the one thing that could change everything if she ever had to use it. At the same time, deep in the heart of the city, in a towering office building that looked like it belonged in a movie, Luca Rossi sat in his private penthouse. He was 38, the son of Don Vincenzo Rossi, the most powerful mafia boss in Chicago. Luca had dark hair that fell over his forehead and sharp brown eyes that looked like black ice. He wore a custom charcoal suit that cost more than most people's yearly salary, and a Rolex Daytona watch glinted on his wrist. His voice was rich and deep, smooth as glass, but edged with danger. Everyone in the city knew him as the boss's son, and he lived up to it. He commanded respect with a single look or a finger gesture, and his men jumped before he finished speaking. That night, Luca stood at the floor-to-ceiling windows, looking out at the stormy night. He had just finished a meeting with his underboss, Marco, who stood nearby with his arms crossed. "The shipments from the docks are clean this time," Marco said quietly. Luca nodded once, his voice low and commanding. "Good. Make sure nothing slips. The rival family is getting too close, and we cannot afford any mistakes." His underboss replied with a sharp, "Yes, boss," and the two men moved on to the next problem. Luca was ruthless with everyone else. To him, weakness was a sign of weakness, and failure meant death. He had spent his life in this world, and he expected his only son, his nephew, to follow the same path. But there was one problem no one knew about. His nephew, Dominic, was failing every test. Dominic was 17, tall and built like a boxer, with bruises on his knuckles from too many fights. He wore a custom-tailored suit that looked like a straitjacket on him, but he could not pass his classes. His father had already pulled him from school twice, and now the pressure was crushing. Dominic sat in his room at the family estate, surrounded by books and computers, his head buried in a thick textbook. He was trying to study economics, but the numbers blurred, the letters danced, and his mind would not cooperate. His father did not tolerate failure, and Dominic knew what would happen if he let his father down again. The collision happened on a rainy afternoon at the hospital where Emily worked. Dominic had been pulled from school and put under house arrest after another failed test. His father had sent him to the hospital with a message for the head doctor, but the message got lost in the storm. Dominic entered the building through the side entrance, his shoes making wet prints on the marble floors. He was looking for the medical records room, but he got lost in the long hallways. Emily was there, pushing a cart of supplies, her gray scrubs wrinkled from a long shift. She was on her way to stock the supply closet when she almost bumped into him. "Excuse me," she said, her voice flat but tired. Dominic looked up, his dark eyes locking on hers for a second. "Sorry," he muttered, but his voice was sharp, like he was used to everyone moving out of his way. They stepped aside at the same time, and the cart of supplies teetered. Emily reached out to steady it, but it tipped anyway, and a box of medical supplies fell to the floor with a loud crash. Papers scattered everywhere, and Emily froze. Dominic's eyes widened. He had not expected this. His hand went to his side, and he felt the outline of the small gun in his pocket. Emily saw the movement and knew something was wrong. She was frozen, sensing the danger without seeing the full picture. Dominic's underboss had followed him to the hospital, waiting in the car outside. The man stepped out, his Glock 19 drawn, the metallic click of it racking the slide, filling the quiet hallway. "Boss?" he whispered into his earpiece, his voice urgent. "We have a problem. The kid is in trouble. Dominic stood still, his pulse racing, but he did not move. The underboss looked around, his eyes scanning the empty halls. Then he saw Emily. She was standing there, a nurse in gray scrubs, her hazel eyes wide with fear. The underboss's finger tightened on the trigger. "Take her," he ordered in a low voice. "If she saw anything, she cannot walk out of here." Dominic shook his head once, his voice cold. "No, leave her." The underboss blinked, confused. "Boss?" Dominic gave the signal with one finger, and the underboss lowered his gun. The sound of the weapon going back into the holster echoed in the hallway. Emily felt the tension drain from her shoulders, but she still stood frozen. She had no idea who Dominic was, but something in the way he held himself told her he was not like the men she had seen on the streets. The underboss stepped back, but the tension hung in the air. Dominic looked at Emily again, his eyes narrowing. "What is your name?" he asked, his voice low. "Emily," she answered, her voice steady but tired. "Emily Harper." Dominic did not smile. He just nodded once. "Stay out of this," he said, and then he turned and walked away, his shoes leaving wet marks on the marble floor. The underboss followed, but Emily knew something had just changed. She bent down and started picking up the scattered papers, her hands shaking a little. She had no idea that the boy she had just helped was the son of a Mafia boss, but she would find out soon enough. The next day, Dominic found her again. He had been sent back to the hospital with another message, but this time, he asked for her by name. Emily was in the supply room, organizing shelves, when he appeared at the door. He looked different, his suit still expensive, but his eyes tired. "You," he said, pointing at her. "You are the nurse. I need you." Emily raised an eyebrow, her arms crossed. "I am a nurse, not a messenger. What do you need?" Dominic stepped closer, the smell of expensive cologne mixing with the hospital's antiseptic. "My father wants me to pass his tests. All of them. Economics, history, everything. But I cannot. My brain, it does not work the way others do. I need help." He did not explain more. He just looked at her with those black ice eyes. Emily felt a strange mix of pity and anger. She had seen men like him before, powerful but broken inside. "Help? Like what? You think I am some kind of tutor?" Dominic shook his head. "No, I think you are the only person in this building who will not run away when they find out who I am. Come with me." Emily hesitated. Her job was to help people, but this felt dangerous. Still, something in her hazel eyes showed she was not going to back down easily. She followed him out of the hospital, through the rain, into the black armored SUV waiting outside. The car was sleek and silent, with leather seats and a driver who did not speak. As they drove away from the city, Dominic showed her the first real thing about his world. He poured 2 glasses of Macallan 25 scotch, the golden liquid catching the light in the back of the SUV. "Drink this," he said, his voice calm. "It will help you see clearer." Emily took the glass, her fingers brushing his. The scotch burned down her throat, but it grounded her. "Who are you really?" she asked, her voice low. "I am Luca Rossi's son," Dominic admitted, his eyes never leaving hers. "The boss does not tolerate failure. If I fail, he will send me away, or worse. I need someone who can see past the mask." Emily nodded once. "I see," she said, "but I am not your servant. If you want my help, you pay me, in real money, and you tell me the truth." Dominic stared at her, his dark eyes meeting hers. For the first time in years, someone looked at him and saw more than the son of a boss. The SUV stopped at the Rossi estate, a massive mansion hidden behind high gates in the suburbs. Marble floors echoed their steps as they entered the private office. Dominic sat at his desk, the floor-to-ceiling windows showing the stormy sky. He explained everything to her that night, including the secret his father had hidden from the world. His father had a secret list of real estate deals that could make or break their family. The numbers were complicated, and Dominic could not read them the normal way. But he had a different way. He could see patterns in the chaos, like seeing the wind in the trees. Emily listened, her mind working. This was the seed she had carried her whole life. Her father had been a fixer, not just a regular man. He had taught her how to see the invisible parts of problems. She had never told anyone, not even her mother. Now, with Dominic's life on the line, she decided to share it. "I can help," she said quietly, "but you have to trust me. No questions when I say so." Dominic nodded, his voice soft for the first time. I trust you. The Macallan 25 had grounded her, but the real connection started there. They worked late into the night, and for the first time, Dominic felt something real. The storm outside matched the storm inside him, and Emily was the eye of it. Over the next week, they met every night. Emily came to the estate through the back entrance, her steps silent on the Persian rug in the private quarters. Dominic was always there, wearing his charcoal suit, his Rolex Daytona catching the light as he poured another glass of scotch. He tested her in small ways, asking her to read a report or explain a deal. Emily refused to be intimidated. I am not a toy for your tests, she said, her hazel eyes flashing. I am here because I want to help, but if you push me too far, I will walk out and let you fail. Dominic listened, his voice calm. I know. That is why you are the only one who sees me. He poured the scotch again, the liquid glowing in the dim light. One night, after a long session, they stood too close in the quiet office. Dominic's hand brushed her shoulder, and the air felt heavy. You are different, he whispered. Emily felt the pull, but she stepped back. Not yet, she whispered. We have a final test to pass first. A knock at the door broke the moment. Marco, the underboss, entered. Boss, the rival family is moving on the docks. We need you. Dominic's face hardened, but he nodded. I will be there. The moment was broken, but the tension remained. Emily knew the danger was building, and she would not let Dominic face it alone. The betrayal happened when Dominic was called away for a meeting with the rival family. Marco, his trusted underboss, was left to guard Emily. Marco had been paid by the rival family to get rid of Dominic. He had the Glock 19 in his hand, pointed at Emily while Dominic was gone. You are nothing, Marco sneered, his voice full of contempt. Just the maid's daughter playing nurse. Your life ends here. Emily did not flinch. She had been waiting for this. Her father had taught her everything she needed. You think fear is my weakness? She asked, her voice steady. Marco laughed, stepping closer. Yes, and it will be the last thing you feel. But then, he made the fatal mistake. He lowered his guard, thinking she was just a scared girl. He reached for her arm, his fingers close to her throat. Emily moved like lightning. Her hand shot out, fingers targeting the exact pressure point on his wrist. The Glock 19 flew from his hand with a clatter on the marble floor. Marco's eyes widened in shock, his body crumpling as she followed through with a precise kick to his knee. She was not a scared maid's daughter. She was the weapon her father had left behind. She wasn't a regular nurse everyone assumed, she said, her voice cold and commanding. She was a fixer, a strategy, a trap her father had left behind. Marco groaned on the floor, blood trickling from his lip. Emily picked up the Glock, checking it quickly. Stay down, she ordered, her hazel eyes never leaving his. The power reversal was complete. She had taken control in seconds, and the room felt different. Dominic returned minutes later, his face pale when he saw the scene. Marco was neutralized, and Emily stood over him, the gun in her hand. Dominic looked at her with awe, not anger. You did this? He asked, his voice thick. You are the most dangerous person in this room. Emily smiled for the first time, a small but fierce smile. Yes, and I am not done yet. With Marco out of the way, the rival family became easy targets. Dominic coordinated the final operation from his office, his voice cold and commanding over the phone. Take them out, he said, his underboss repeating the orders. The rival family was erased that night, their threats gone forever. The estate felt lighter after the crisis, the Persian rug still under their feet as Dominic crossed the room to Emily. The interrupted moment from before was now complete. His hands framed her face, his thumbs brushing her cheeks. You saved me, he whispered, his deep baritone soft. I thought I was the boss's son, the one who would run everything. But you showed me the real power. Emily's hands rested on his chest, feeling his heartbeat slow. We are equals now, she said. No more hiding. The kiss they had almost shared earlier was no longer interrupted. It was real, intense, a pact between two people who had flipped the script. They sealed the romance right there, in the quiet of the private quarters, the storm outside matching the calm inside their hearts. A few weeks later, the Rossi estate was quiet again, but the changes were clear. Emily no longer wore scrubs in the hospital. She had claimed a new position as the head of the family's security and intelligence division. She wore tailored black suits now, her dark hair pinned up, her hazel eyes sharp with new power. She held the real estate ledger, the one Dominic had once failed to read. "I am not the maid's daughter anymore," she told Dominic one night, standing by the floor-to-ceiling windows. "I am the one who sees the invisible." Dominic pulled her close, his Rolex Daytona catching the city lights. "And I am the son who learned from the best." The final test had passed, and they had written their own rules. The Mafia world would never be the same. Did Emily make the right choice stepping into his world, or was his obsession really protection? Could a woman like her ever truly trust a man like him? If this story gripped you, hit that like button and drop your thoughts in the comments below. We love hearing which moment got you. Subscribe and ring the bell. New stories drop regularly, and you do not want to miss what comes next.